Clara Bellamy pressed her swollen wrist against a bolt of gray wool and did not cry. She had learned early that tears were just another thing men could use against you. The paper on the counter said she belonged to Orson Vale by Friday. Her father's signature sat at the bottom of it, dry and certain. She was 24 years old, and a clerk's seal had just tried to sell her like a wagon, a mule, or a stack of unpaid invoices. Then the bell above the dressmaker's door snapped hard against the frame, and the man who stepped in carried pine smoke on his coat, snowmelt on his boots, and the kind of stillness Clara had only ever seen in storms right before they broke. He was not from Mercy Creek. He was not from any street where Orson Vale owned the doors. And before he said a word, his eyes went to the paper, then to her wrist. And Clara knew he had seen enough to become dangerous. Mercy Creek, Wyoming Territory, had spent the summer of 1887 turning the color of old bone. By August, the road through town was a long strip of baked dust. Wagon wheels cut it into ruts by morning. By noon the ruts hardened like fired clay. The air above the blacksmith's roof shimmered. The women crossing Main Street moved quickly with their heads down, not because they were weak, but because everyone in Mercy Creek knew which windows belonged to Orson Vale. Vale owned the lending office. Vale owned the back rooms of the Drovers Hotel. Vale owned half the leases on the north side of town and most of the debts on the south side. And for 3 years he had owned Joseph Bellamy one payment at a time. Clara knew the number because she had found it in her father's ledger. $386. Not a fortune to a cattleman. Not much to a banker in Cheyenne. But to a widower with a failing tailoring shop, it was a mountain placed on a table and called an account. Her mother had died owing the doctor. Her father had borrowed. The first paper looked harmless. The second paper looked necessary. The third paper had words in it that Clara could barely stand to read. Deficiency, default, assignment, collateral labor. By the time she understood the shape of it, the trap had already closed around the shop. She ran that shop now. Everyone knew it. Her father still sat behind the cutting table some afternoons and talked as if the business were his. But Clara ordered the thread, measured the coats, patched the miners' trousers, mended children's dresses, argued with the freight clerk over buttons, and woke before dawn to finish work. Joseph had promised and forgotten. The men in town called it Bellamy's tailoring. The women in town called it Clara's place. Her father called it duty. Orson Vale called it security. On Tuesday morning, Joseph came downstairs with his Sunday collar crooked and his hand shaking. Clara was chalking a seam onto a brown work coat. She did not look up. "You cut that too narrow," he said. "No," Clara said. "Mr. Dannell lost weight over winter. I measured him twice." "You always think you know better." "I usually know what I measured." The silence after that was the dangerous kind. Her father stood in the doorway, breathing through his nose. Once, when Clara was little, he had smelled like wool, tobacco, and cedar blocks. After her mother died, he began to smell like old whiskey and lamp smoke. The change had happened so slowly that Clara could not name the day when the father she remembered became the man watching her now. "Vale is coming Friday," Joseph said. Her chalk stopped moving. For the payment? Joseph swallowed. For settlement. Clara set the chalk down carefully. We don't have $386. No. Then what does he settle with? Her father did not answer. He looked at the cutting table, at the iron, at the window, anywhere but at her. And that was when Clara felt the cold move through her. Not shock. She had not had the luxury of shock in years. It was recognition. The particular cold that comes when the thing you feared finally steps out from behind the curtain wearing its own face. "Say it," she said. "Clara, say what you signed." Joseph's mouth trembled once. "You'll go to the Drovers' Hotel." The room narrowed. To work? To keep the rooms. Sewing, laundry, proper women's work. The back rooms of the Drovers are not proper anything, and you know it. Vail said he would credit the debt. "He will credit nothing," Clara said. "He will write down a fee for my bed, a fee for my meals, a fee for the thread I use, a fee for breathing his air. He will own my wages and still own your debt." Joseph slammed his hand against the door frame. "You think I don't know that?" For a moment she saw the ruined part of him clearly. Not the anger, the fear under it. "I had no other offer," he said. "No bank would touch me. The judge drinks with Vail. The sheriff owes him. Your uncle stopped writing. Your mother left bills I could not pay. Do not put this on Mama." "I am putting it where it belongs," he snapped. Clara looked at him for a long moment. Then she picked up the chalk and finished the seam. Her father stared at her. "Did you hear me?" "I heard you. Friday." "I heard that too." He waited for pleading, for tears, for the satisfaction of watching her accept what he had already accepted. She gave him none of it. After a while, Joseph went back upstairs. Clara kept her hands steady until she finished the coat. Then she walked to the back room, took $11.60 from a tea tin hidden behind a loose board under the treadle machine, and counted it 3 times. $11.60. Enough to leave town badly, not enough to survive leaving it. At 9:30 the stranger entered. The bell above the door made a hard, bright sound. Clara looked up with her measuring tape still around her neck. He was tall, broad in the shoulders, mid-30s perhaps, with a face cut by weather and eyes the color of river stones under ice. His coat was dark canvas, patched at the cuff, and his boots carried a pale grit that did not belong to Mercy Creek's road. High country dust. Men from the timberline had that on them. He stopped inside the door and looked at the room the way some men looked at country. Door. Windows. Back exit. People. Then her. "Need a coat repaired," he said. He laid the coat on the counter. A tear ran along one sleeve, clean and ugly. Clara lifted it, checked the weave. "Canvas with oil finish, I can patch it. Not invisibly. Don't need invisible. Need it to hold. That costs more than pretty." The corner of his mouth moved, not quite a smile. "Good." She turned the sleeve and saw the tear had been made by something sharp. Not brush, not a fall. A blade or a jagged tool. "Tomorrow afternoon," she said. "I leave before noon tomorrow." "Then you should have torn it yesterday." This time he did almost smile. "Can you do it by evening?" "Yes." He placed coins on the counter. Too many. Clara pushed 2 back. "That's the price." He looked at the coins, then at her. "Most people keep what's set down. Most people should learn to count." He took the coins back. Then his gaze moved, not openly, not rudely. But Clara saw it. Her cuff had slipped up when she lifted the coat. The bruise around her wrist was yellow at the edge and purple at the center, shaped like fingers. She pulled the cuff down. The stranger did not ask. That was the first thing that made him different. He only said, "Name? For the claim ticket? For who I'm trusting with my coat?" "Bellamy." His eyes sharpened. "Joseph Bellamy's daughter. Clara Bellamy." "Rusk," he said. "Ilya's Rusk." She wrote it on the ticket. He took the small slip of paper, put his hat back on, and left. Clara watched him through the glass until the dust swallowed his boots. She did not know why the name felt important. Maybe because he had seen the bruise and not used it. Maybe because his coat had been torn by something that wanted in and failed. Maybe because Mercy Creek had been full of men all her life, and most of them looked at her as if she were either useful or in the way. Elias Rusk had looked as if she were evidence. He came back before dusk. His coat was not ready. Clara had known it would not be, because she had not touched it after noon. She had spent the afternoon searching every drawer of her father's desk. She found the first loan agreement. She found the second note. She found the payment ledger. And under a folded newspaper from May, she found a document that made the room tilt. It was not a simple labor agreement. It was an adult dependency petition. That was the phrase. Adult dependency. As if she were feeble. As if she were a child. As if a woman who had been keeping a business alive since she was 17 could be called dependent because a man with debt had signed her so. The petition named Joseph Bellamy as the declaring party. It named Orson Vale as custodian of assigned labor. It named Clara Bellamy as subject. The date at the top was 13 days old. Friday was not when she would be signed over. Friday was when Vale meant to collect what he already believed he had bought. She put the paper back exactly where she had found it. Then she sat at the sewing table and stitched Elias Rusk's coat by hand, because the work gave her fingers something to do besides shake. When he returned, Clara had the coat folded on the counter. Stronger than it was, she said. He checked the seam. His thumb moved once along the patch. "That's good work. It had to be. You said it needed to hold." He looked at her. "Orson Vale is coming for you Friday." Clara did not move. The light in the shop had gone amber and thin. Outside, a wagon rolled past slowly, its wheels complaining. "I don't discuss family business with men I have known for one day," she said. "Fair. Then why are you still standing there?" "Because Vale operated in Lander Crossing 4 years ago. Before that, Pine Wash. He uses debt the way trappers use wire. He waits until the animal wears itself out." Clara's hand closed around the edge of the counter. "You know him. I know his pattern. That is not the same thing." "No," Elias said. Knowing him cost more. The room held still. Clara had learned that when a person carried grief tightly enough, it made a shape around them. Elias Rusk had that shape. "My sister kept a rooming house in Lander Crossing," he said. Vale wrote her a contract that renewed every 6 months at his discretion. She worked 2 years paying a debt that grew every month. Did she get out? Yes, but not cleanly. No. Clara looked at the coat between them. "What do you want?" to know if the paper your father signed says labor assignment only or dependency. She stared at him. His face did not change, but she saw, all at once, that he had not guessed. He had been looking for the shape of the trap and had found it in her silence. Dependency, she said. A small muscle moved in his jaw. Filed? 13 days ago. County clerk? I assume so. Then Friday is collection. I know. Do you have a lawyer? Clara almost laughed. Do you have money? $11.60. He nodded once, as if that number mattered because she had made it matter. I know a territorial judge in Fort Kersey, Abram Voss. He has been taking statements on Vale's contracts for more than a year. Fort Kersey is 4 days away, 3 if ridden hard. Friday is in 2 days. Yes, then your judge does not help me. No. She hated him a little for saying it plainly. She respected him for the same reason. What does? She asked. Elias set his patched coat over one arm. In this territory, an adult dependency claim can be challenged if the subject has independent household standing, which means legal counsel, property title, or marriage. Clara stared at him. The word sat between them, ugly and useful. That is not help, she said. It is law. It is a man's law. Yes. It protects me by giving another man standing over me. Yes, you say that as if it does not disgust you. It does, Elias said. But disgust does not beat a clerk's seal. The honesty of that stopped her. He continued, voice even. A wife cannot be taken under a dependency petition without a separate court proceeding and the husband's consent. Vale would have to expose the whole structure of the claim in territorial court. He won't want that. Not while Judge Voss is already looking at him. And you are offering a legal arrangement. With yourself. Yes. Clara looked toward the back room, toward the stairs where her father slept badly above a shop he had already gambled away in all but name. What would you get? I have a cabin on a timber claim east of the Wind River slope. It needs someone who can run a household better than I can. Cooking, sewing, stores, winter planning. Work you're already doing for men who value it less. And when I want to leave, you leave. Words are easy. He reached into his coat and took out a folded paper, not a contract, a blank sheet. He set it on the counter with a pencil. Write the terms. Clara looked at him. You would sign terms written by me. If I mean what I say, I should. For the first time that day, Clara felt something other than fear. Not hope. Hope was too soft a word. It was more like finding a needle in a dark room by touching the point. Dangerous, sharp, useful. 8 o'clock Friday, she said. The magistrate opens at 8. Then be there. I will. If you are not, I will hate you until I die. Elias picked up his coat. That seems fair. He left. Clara stood alone in the dressmaker's shop, smelling dust and lamp oil and wool, and understood that she had just agreed to marry a stranger, because her father had tried to sign away her name. Then she sat down and wrote the terms. Her room would have a door, the door would have a latch, her money would remain hers. Her letters would not be opened. No claim would be made on her body. No debt would be assigned to her. She could leave with any property she brought or earned. If the law gave Elias Rusk authority, the terms would bind what he did with it. She wrote every line twice. The second copy was cleaner. On Thursday, Joseph Bellamy tried to make breakfast cheerful. That was how Clara knew he had fully surrendered her. He sat at the table in the back room, buttered his bread with a shaking hand, and said Vale's hotel had proper sheets. He said the work might not be as hard as town gossip made it sound. He said women survived worse. Clara poured coffee and watched him talk. There are moments when love does not end with fire. Sometimes it goes cold like a stove after the last coal dies. She had feared her father. She had pitied him. She had hated him in pieces. That morning she felt something flatter, a sorrow with no door in it. "Eat," Joseph said. "I'm not hungry. You need strength." "For what?" He looked at her then, really looked, and maybe some part of him saw that she was already gone. Not from the chair, not from the room, from the arrangement he had made in his mind where she remained his daughter and his payment at the same time. He looked away first. Clara packed before sunrise Friday. One dress for work, one dress for winter, her mother's silver thimble, the $11.60, the 2 written copies of her terms, a small tin of needles, and a photograph of her mother standing in front of the shop when the sign still read Bellamy and Wife, because there had been a time when the truth had been painted outside where everyone could see it. She left by the back door. The magistrate's office sat between the assay clerk and a feed broker, narrow and dusty, with a portrait of President Cleveland hanging crooked over a shelf of county forms. Elias Rusk was already there. He had shaved. That was the first thing she noticed. The second was that his coat had her patch on the sleeve, clean and strong. He stood when she entered. "You came," he said. "I said I would." He looked as if he approved of that answer more than the ceremony they were about to perform. The clerk looked half asleep until Clara set her written terms on the desk. "What's this?" "Terms of household arrangement," Clara said. The clerk blinked. The magistrate, a round man named Pruitt, put on his spectacles and read the first page. Then the second. Then he looked at Elias. "You agree to this?" "Yes." "You understand marriage generally doesn't come with this much inventory." "Then most people are careless." The magistrate snorted once and signed as witness. At 8:18 in the morning, Clara Bellamy spoke the words the law required. Elias Rusk spoke his. The clerk recorded the marriage in the Territorial book. At 8:27, Clara signed her new name for the first time. Clara Rusk. Not because she had become another man's property. Because she had found the one paper Vale had not prepared for. The stamp struck the page. Small sound, large consequence. Elias handed her one certified copy. She folded it and put it inside her bodice. "Ready?" he asked. Clara lifted her bag. "I have been ready for 3 years." They left Mercy Creek at 9:06. Orson Vale arrived at the dressmaker's shop at 10. Clara never saw his face when he found the door locked, the counter empty, and the woman he had come to collect already written into a different record. She imagined it often. It pleased her every time. The ride into the high country began with dust and ended with cold. By midday, Mercy Creek had flattened behind them. The road rose through sage and scrub oak, then into pines that pulled the heat out of the air. Clara rode a dun mare named Button, whose patience seemed less like personality and more like professional duty. Elias rode ahead, but not too far ahead, close enough to hear if she called, far enough not to crowd her. Clara noticed these measurements. She noticed everything. When a person has lived with anger in the next room for years, she learns the language of distance. Too close means danger, too far means abandonment. Elias kept finding the middle without being told. At the first creek crossing, they stopped to water the horses. Clara climbed down stiffly and looked at her hands. They had stopped shaking. She had not known they were shaking until they weren't. Elias crouched near the water. "Vale will send someone," she said. "Yes. You seem calm about that." "I'm not calm. I'm prepared." "Is there a difference?" "Calm can be ignorance. Prepared is work." Clara considered that. "What did your sister's contract cost her?" His hand stilled on the canteen. 2 years. Most of her savings. Some of her sleep. A marriage she had planned before Vale got his hooks in it. "Did you help her?" "Late." The word carried more weight than a confession. Clara did not pry. She had her own late things. "That's why you were in Mercy Creek," she said. "Partly. Looking for Vale. Looking for proof. And found me." His eyes met hers. "I found a paper trail with a person attached to it." Clara looked back toward the country below. That person would like not to be spoken of as an attachment. Understood. The cabin appeared after dark. A shape first, then a wall, then a roof line under the pines, black against a blue-black sky crowded with stars. It was larger than Clara expected and plainer. Built of good logs, chinked tight, with a stone chimney and a lean-to stable. No porch worth naming, no curtains, no ornament except a horseshoe above the door, hung upside down, which Clara found immediately irritating. "That lets luck run out," she said. Elias looked at the horseshoe. "I wondered why it hadn't been working." She almost laughed. Not quite. He gave her a quick inventory: water bucket, stove, flour tin, root cellar, blankets, tools, rifle, coffee. Then he opened a door off the main room. "Yours." The room was small and clean. A narrow bed, a peg rail, a window. A quilt folded at the foot, a wooden latch on the inside of the door. Clara stepped in and touched the latch. Not because she doubted it, because a thing can be both simple and holy. "Thank you," she said. Elias nodded once. "I'll sleep in the loft." That was in the terms. I read them. "I know. Good night, Mrs. Rusk." The name startled her. Not because he said it possessively, because he did not. It sounded like a fact being handled carefully. "Good night, Mr. Rusk." She latched the door. Then she sat on the bed in a room that could be closed from the inside and let herself cry once. Quietly, not because she was defeated. Because for the first time in years, there was no one on the other side of the door who would punish her for it. The first week on the mountain did not make Clara free. It made her busy. That was better. Freedom, she was learning, was not a feeling that arrived fully dressed. It came disguised as chores. Water before breakfast. Fire before coffee. Ash out of the stove. Check the flour. Count the beans. Mend the torn blanket. Patch the gap under the north window. Learn which shelf held salt and which held nails, because Elias Rusk, despite keeping a clean cabin, apparently believed both belonged in identical tins. The stove ran hot on the left and lazy on the right. Clara burned the first biscuits, cursed the altitude under her breath, and made a second batch that rose properly. Elias ate 4. "This is better than what I make," he said. "What do you make?" "Beans. Only beans. Sometimes meat in beans. That's not a second dish." "That's evidence." The corner of his mouth moved. They learned each other through practical things. He did not speak before coffee unless the cabin was on fire or in danger of becoming so. She did not like anyone standing behind her while she worked. He checked the door every time he came in. She checked the door every time she went to bed. On the 4th night he noticed. "You can check it twice," he said without looking up from his book. Clara froze. "What?" "The latch. If once doesn't settle it." She stared at him. "I know it's latched. I know. I'm not afraid of you." "I know that too." "Then why say it?" He turned a page. "Because latches are made to be used, not trusted from memory." Clara looked at the door, then at him. It was a small kindness, so small another person might have missed it. She did not. She got up, checked the latch again, and returned to her chair. Elias said nothing. That made it kinder. Vale's men came on the 9th day. Clara heard the horses before she saw them. Buttons stamped in the lean-to. Elias was already at the window, rifle in hand, but not raised. 2 riders came up the south trail. One was Vale's errand man, Abel Crow, big in the saddle and flat in the face. The other wore a black coat too fine for mountain dust. "Lawyer," Elias said. "Vale's? Likely. What do we do?" "You stand where they can see you. You do not let them draw you into argument. If I ask you a question, answer only that question." Clara's chin lifted. "I am not a child." "No," Elias said, "which is why I'm telling you the plan instead of hiding it from you." That stopped the anger before it reached her mouth. "All right," she said. "Tell the plan." He opened the door. The riders stopped at the yard's edge. The lawyer introduced himself as Mr. Silas Trent of Cheyenne, representing Orson Vale in a matter of unlawful avoidance. Elias leaned one shoulder against the doorframe. That's a large phrase for a short ride. Trent's face tightened. "My client holds a valid adult dependency petition, filed with the county clerk 13 days before your alleged marriage to Miss Bellamy." "Mrs. Rusk," Elias said, "that is the matter in dispute." "No, that is the matter you wrote up here hoping was in dispute." Trent removed a paper from his coat. "The petition predates the marriage. The petition was never lawfully executed," Elias said, "and the woman named in it was a legal adult who neither appeared nor consented. The marriage was recorded at 8:18 Friday morning. Vale attempted collection at 10. By the time he knocked on that shop door, his paper was dead." Abel Crow shifted in the saddle. Trent glanced at Clara. "Miss Bellamy?" "Mrs. Rusk," Clara said. Her voice surprised her. It did not shake. Trent's mouth thinned. "Do you claim you entered this marriage freely?" "Yes." "Without pressure?" Clara stepped forward just enough that the lawyer had to look at her fully. "I entered it under pressure created by your client," she said. "Not by my husband. There is a difference, and a judge will understand it even if you prefer not to." For the first time, Elias looked at her with something like admiration breaking through his caution. Trent folded the paper. "Mr. Vale will pursue this. He should write to Judge Abram Voss in Fort Kersey," Elias said. "The judge has been waiting for cleaner evidence of Vale's dependency scheme." That landed. Clara saw it. A small loss of color under the lawyer's polished confidence. "You are threatening a legal officer?" "No," Elias said. "I'm giving directions." The riders left with less dignity than they had arrived with. Elias stood in the doorway until the sound of hooves faded. Then he closed the door. Clara let out the breath she had been holding. "Judge Voss is real," she said. "Yes, he is actually looking at Vale. Yes. And you did not tell me how far this reached. I told you what you needed to decide Friday." Clara's eyes hardened. "You do not get to decide what I need." Elias accepted that without defense. "You're right." She was not prepared for him to say it, so she said nothing. He set the rifle back on the rack. "Vale wanted my claim before he wanted your father's shop," he said. "There is timber on this ridge and an old silver trace in the creek bed. Not rich. Enough. He used my sister in Lander Crossing to put pressure on me. When I did not sell, he moved Territory and kept building the same machine." Clara stared at him. "So this is personal?" "Yes." "Good. That surprised him." She stepped closer. "He tried to make me a debt instrument. He is ruining my father's last trade because I walked out of reach. He is holding other women in hotel rooms under contracts they cannot read their way out of. Everything about this is personal. That does not make it small." Elias looked at her for a long moment. "No," he said, "it doesn't." After that, the fight changed shape. The mountain cabin was no longer a hiding place. It became a place where papers arrived. Letters came through the Pike homestead, 4 miles down the slope. Nora Pike was a square-shouldered woman with sun-browned skin, gray in her braid, and a habit of deciding whether she liked a person before that person finished the first sentence. She liked Clara, after learning Clara had cleaned the cabin windows. "Man lived up here 6 years squinting through dirt," Nora said. "I considered it a character defect." Elias, who was stacking wood beside Nora's husband, did not argue. The Pikes had their own history with Vale. A false lien on grazing access. 8 months fighting a line on a map that should never have been drawn. "Vale makes trouble whether you bow or stand," Nora told Clara. "So you might as well stand and keep your knees useful." Clara wrote that in her journal that night. Not because it was pretty, because it was true. 2 weeks later, a federal land agent named Thomas Cale rode up with a leather case under his arm and the dust of 3 counties on his coat. Judge Voss had sent him. Not a letter, a man. That told Clara the matter had weight. Cale sat at the table, drank coffee, and explained the case without ornament. Vale had used dependency petitions in 4 counties. At least 5 adult women had been named as subjects. 3 had been moved into hotel or boarding house labor. 1 had escaped to family in Nebraska. Clara's case was the cleanest because the dates were sharp, the marriage record was certified, and the collection attempt had happened after the new legal status was filed. "We need your statement," Cale said. "How much of it? All of it." "Good." He looked faintly surprised. Clara went to her room, returned with her copies of the terms, her notes, and the certified marriage record. Then she spoke for 3 hours. She gave dates, amounts, names, what her father said, where the papers were kept, what Vale's men had asked, what Elias had answered. She did not make herself softer. She did not make her father worse than he was or better than he deserved. When she finished, Thomas Cale closed his notebook and looked at her differently than he had when he arrived. "Mrs. Rusk," he said, "you would make a formidable witness." Clara poured more coffee. "I'm aware." Cale nearly smiled. "Judge Voss will want you in Fort Kersey if Vale pushes this. Then he should send the date." He may. He should. After Cale left, Elias stood beside Clara in the doorway and watched the agent disappear down the trail. "That was brave," he said. "It was organized. Those can be the same thing." She looked at him. He was watching the trail, but his voice had gone quiet in a way she was beginning to understand. For Elias Rusk, praise was not decoration. It cost him something. So when he spent it, she kept it. September came with early frost and a worse letter. Not from Judge Voss, from Joseph Bellamy. Clara opened it outside because the cabin suddenly felt too small. Her father wrote that Vale had closed his credit at the fabric wholesaler. The landlord had threatened the shop lease. 3 of their oldest customers had stopped coming. The final line was cramped. The ink pressed hard into the page. "I think he means to take the shop." Clara, "I do not know what to do." She read it twice. Then she handed it to Elias. He read it and said, "Vale is squeezing the thing you might come back to save." "I know." "If you return?" He stopped squeezing. "I know that too." She took the letter back. "I am not returning." "Good." The single word steadied her more than comfort would have. "But my father's failure should not erase my mother's shop," she said. "Write to Voss. Put the pressure on record. If Vale uses leases and suppliers to punish witnesses, I want the judge to see the whole pattern. I'll write today. Use names. Porter for the lease. Grimsley for fabric. Dannel for stopped orders. Dates if you have them." Elias's expression shifted. "What?" She folded the letter. "I have been keeping a business alive under a drunk man's name for 7 years. I know what details matter." He inclined his head. "Yes, you do." The letter from Judge Voss came 11 days later. Vale had filed in Territorial court. Not county. Territorial. He argued that Clara's marriage was invalid because the dependency petition predated it, and because a woman under declared dependency lacked capacity to enter a contract without custodian consent. Clara read the sentence 3 times. The words did not become less poisonous. Elias stood across the table. His face told her before his mouth did. "That argument has teeth," she said. "Some. You hate saying that." "Yes, say the rest. Dependency law is inconsistent. If Vale found a clever attorney, he may persuade a clerk to hear it. And if a clerk hears it, then Voss must rule before Vale can use the confusion." Clara looked at the date at the bottom of the page. "September 14th. Yes. Fort Kersey is 3 days if we ride hard." "Yes. Then we leave tomorrow." Elias was quiet for 1 second too long. Clara's voice sharpened. "I am not asking permission. I know. Do you?" He met her eyes. "Yes. I was calculating supplies, not authority." The anger went out of her before it could do damage. "Good," they told the Pikes at first light. Nora listened with her arms folded. 3 days down, 3 back, courthouse in the middle? "Likely," Elias said. "I'll check the cabin. My boys will water the stock if weather turns." Clara said, "I don't want Vale putting you in his path." Nora gave her a flat look. Honey, Vale put himself in my path 2 years ago. I just didn't have a federal judge to send him to. Then she took Clara's hands and squeezed once. Scared? A little. Good. Scared and moving beats calm and trapped. Clara wrote that down in her head before she ever reached her journal. The ride to Fort Kersey stripped the softness from every thought. There was pain in it. Back, hands, knees. The steady bruise of saddle leather. By the second evening, Clara understood that distance had a truth of its own. A thing that looked possible on a map became honest under the body. Elias set a hard pace, but not a cruel one. He rode beside her more on the second day. By then, they had left the high pines and entered open country where the grass ran gold and the sky looked large enough to swallow a courthouse whole. "Do you think Voss will rule cleanly?" she asked. "I think he wants the chance." "That is not what I asked." "No." She waited. Elias looked toward the road ahead. "I think Vale miscalculated when he made you the center of the case." "Why?" "Because he is used to frighten people trying to sound innocent. You sound exact." Clara let that sit. "My mother used to say a crooked seam gets worse when you hide it under trim." "Your mother sounds useful." "She was more than useful." "I didn't mean less. I know." And she did know. That surprised her. Fort Kersey had a brick courthouse with white columns that seemed absurdly formal against the raw brown hills behind it. Clara slept poorly in the boarding house. In the morning she pinned her hair tight, put on her dark blue dress, placed her mother's thimble in her pocket, and walked with Elias to the courthouse before 7. Judge Abram Voss was thin, gray and quiet enough to make louder men look foolish. Vale's attorney was named Edmund Harrow. He had silver hair, polished shoes, and the expression of a man who expected plain people to become smaller inside official rooms. Clara saw him look at her dress, her hands, Elias's patched coat, the small travel dust still on her hem. Then he looked away as if he had learned enough. That was his first mistake. Judge Voss opened the file. The court will address the timeline first. Harrow tried to begin with doctrine. Voss returned him to dates. Harrow tried to describe Clara as a declared dependent. Voss returned him to consent. Harrow tried to make the marriage sound sudden, suspicious, desperate. Clara listened until the judge turned to her. "Mrs. Rusk, in your own words, what did you understand on the morning of August 5th?" Clara stood. The room seemed very quiet. "I understood that Orson Vale possessed a paper my father signed 13 days earlier without my knowledge, claiming dependency over an adult woman who had run her household and trade for years. I understood that the paper had not been explained to me, presented to me, or consented to by me. I understood that Mr. Vale intended to use that paper at 10 o'clock that morning to remove me from my place of work and place me under labor at a hotel he controlled." She drew one breath. "I also understood that at 8:18 that same morning I entered a legal marriage freely, with written terms of my own making, before a magistrate and clerk. That record was filed before Vale attempted collection." Harrow shifted. Clara looked at him. "And I understood one more thing." Voss said nothing. So she finished. "A woman is not a debt instrument just because a desperate man signs her name into a sentence." Harrow stood. "Your Honor, rhetoric cannot replace statute." "No," Judge Voss said, "but a clear account of facts is not rhetoric merely because it is inconvenient." The hearing lasted 2 hours. At the end, Judge Voss denied Vail's counterclaim. He ruled that the dependency petition had no enforceable power over a consenting adult woman who had not appeared before the filing authority. He ruled that the marriage record stood. He ruled that Vail's attempt to use the petition after the marriage filing was legally void. Then he said the words that made Harrow go still. This court will examine separately whether Mr. Vail's pattern of dependency filings constitutes fraudulent coercion across territorial lines. Clara felt something inside her settle. Not relief, something stronger. A floorboard finally nailed down. Afterward, Judge Voss gave her 2 certified copies of the ruling. "You understand the broader case will take time," he said. "Yes, your testimony matters. I know." He looked at her closely. "Most people say thank you at this point." "I am thankful," Clara said, "but I am not surprised." For the first time, Judge Voss smiled. "Good." On the ride home, Elias rode beside her. Not ahead, Clara noticed. At the creek crossing where they camped the first night, she took out the certified ruling and held it in the last light. Paper had nearly ruined her. Paper had saved her. No, that was not right. People had done both. Paper only held what people dared to put in it. Elias sat across the fire. "You keep looking at it. I'm making sure it doesn't vanish." "It won't." "You say that like a man who trusts records." "I trust copies." She laughed then. A real laugh. Small, tired, but real. He looked at her over the fire as if the sound had given him something he did not know he wanted. She looked away first. Not because she was afraid. Because some beginnings need darkness around them before they can stand in daylight. They returned to the cabin under a thin, early snow. Clara stopped at the edge of the yard and looked at the roof, the woodpile, the stable, the smoke from the chimney Nora had clearly kept alive earlier that day. Home was not the right word yet, but it was no longer wrong. Inside, Clara placed the certified ruling on the shelf above the stove beside her mother's photograph and the tin of matches. Elias watched. "That where it belongs?" "For now." "What belongs beside it?" She took the silver thimble from her pocket and set it there, too. "The thing Mama used to make seams hold." He said nothing. But later, when Clara woke in the night for water, she saw him standing near the shelf, looking at the ruling, the photograph, and the thimble, as if he understood the arrangement perfectly. The settlement offer came in October. Thomas Cale rode up himself, which meant Trouble had put on clean clothes. Vail offered money, withdrawal of his counterclaims, restitution to the named women, an acknowledgment that the dependency filings had been improperly applied. In exchange, the federal case would end without criminal referral. No trial, no broader ruling, no public record beyond a civil correction. Clara sat at the table and did not touch the paper. Elias read it once. His jaw tightened halfway through. "He wants immunity," he said. "He wants a new needle with the same thread," Clara said. Cale looked from one to the other. "Judge Voss is required to present the offer. Is he required to like it? No. Does he?" Cale paused. "Judge Voss sent me to hear your answer. not to persuade you toward one. Clara stood and walked to the stove. A loaf of bread sat cooling there, her fifth attempt at making the altitude behave. It was not perfect, but it held its shape. "What do the other women want?" she asked. Cale looked surprised. "I came here first. Then you came too soon. Mrs. Rusk, your testimony anchors the case. The anchor does not own the boat." Elias looked at her. Cale lowered his eyes. "I can reach 2 of them within the week. The third may take longer. Do it. The response deadline is 10 days. Then tell Judge Voss my answer now, and tell the others why." "What is your answer?" Clara turned from the stove. No settlement without criminal referral. No quiet correction. No money in exchange for letting him keep the machine. If the case is strong enough to make him offer this, then it is strong enough to make him afraid. Cale looked at Elias. Elias did not speak for her. Good, she thought. He had learned. Cale closed the leather case. "I'll carry that." "Carry all of it," Clara said. "Tell them the paper he made us sign is not who we are. Tell them money is useful, but a record is stronger. Tell them I said no because I want the next woman to have a ruling she can point to before she has to run." Cale's expression changed. Not softness. Respect. "I'll tell them." After he left, the cabin felt larger and heavier. Clara stood with her hands on the back of a chair. Elias came near, but not too near. "You know what you just did," he said. "Yes. I wanted to say that before anyone tries to make you doubt it." She looked at him. His face was open in a way she rarely saw. "You matter," he said. "What you chose matters." Clara's throat tightened. She had been told she was useful, difficult, ungrateful, stubborn, costly. She had not often been told she mattered by someone who understood the cost of the word. "Thank you," she said. He nodded. She went back to the bread before the feeling could become too large to carry. 3 weeks later, the other women refused the settlement too. All 3. One letter came from Cale. One sentence did the work of a sermon. All named witnesses decline private settlement and request federal action proceed. Clara read it twice. Then she sat down. Elias sat across from her. They all said no, she said. They did. Good. The word was small. The thing behind it was not. Winter reached the mountain in November and stayed. Snow pressed the world into a smaller shape. The trail to the pikes became a calculation. The woodpile became wealth. The stove became law. Clara had expected to hate the confinement. Instead, she found purpose in it. Every task had weight. If water froze, you thawed it. If bread failed, you adjusted. If the roof leaked, you patched before weather made a small problem large. There was no room for pretending. That suited her. Elias taught her winter signs. How the silence changed before a heavy snow. How to read wind by tree movement. How to pack a wound, splint a wrist, and walk a hidden trail when drifts erased the ground. He taught without condescension. She learned without apology. She taught him bread, not biscuits, bread. He was terrible at first. Too much flour, too little patience. He treated dough like rope and was offended when it did not respond like rope. "You're fighting it," Clara said. "It's sticky." "Yes, it's alive." He looked at the dough. "That's not comforting." "The mountain didn't comfort me either. I learned it." On the 3rd try, his loaf rose. Not beautifully, but honestly. He stared at it. "Huh, Clara smiled. For Elias Rusk, that was applause. On Christmas Eve, the final letter came. Judge Voss wrote it himself. Clara opened it at the table, expecting another delay, another motion, another legal phrase that meant wait. Instead, she read the first line and stopped breathing. Orson Vale had entered a guilty plea. The plea covered fraudulent dependency filings, coercive labor contracts, predatory lending across territorial lines, and interference with witnesses. His lending office in Mercy Creek and 2 other towns would be dissolved. His contracts were under review. Restitution would be calculated. He was barred from lending, property transfer, and labor contracting under the authority of the Federal 6th Territorial Circuit. 6 territories. At the bottom of the formal page, in different ink, Judge Voss had added one sentence. The seam held, Mrs. Rusk. Well done. Clara read it again. Then again, the words blurred once, and she let them. Elias stood beside her. She handed him the letter. He read it slowly. When he reached the part about 6 territories, he closed his eyes. Lander Crossing, he said. Yes, my sister's county. Yes. He did not move for a long time. Clara did not touch him. She had learned that grief leaving a body could look too much like grief entering it. At last he opened his eyes. Good, he said. Everything under that word stayed unspoken. But she heard it. They opened the cabin door and stood in the cold. The sky above the timberline was full of stars, bright enough to make the snow seem blue. Clara thought of the women she had never met, the ones who had refused the settlement, the one who had been too afraid to speak until someone else said no first. She thought of her mother. She thought of the shop in Mercy Creek and the sign that had once told the truth. Bellamy and wife. She thought of Joseph, who had written only once since October. A short note. The wholesaler had resumed credit. Vale's men no longer came by. Mrs. Dannel had ordered a winter coat. He hoped Clara was well. He did not say sorry. But he wrote, Your mother would have understood you. Clara had folded that line into her journal. It was not enough. It was something. Elias looked down at her. You're freezing. I know. Come inside. She looked at the stars one moment longer. Then she turned. He was standing in the doorway with firelight behind him, his patched sleeve visible, the seam she had sewn still holding after miles of weather and work. Before she stepped past him, he lifted one hand and touched her cheek. Only once. Warm palm, cold night. No claim in it. No demand, just presence. Clara covered his hand with hers and held it there. For one breath, 2. Then they let go. Beginnings, she had learned, did not need to be loud. They needed to hold. Inside, she put the letter from Judge Voss on the shelf, beside the ruling, the thimble, and her mother's photograph. Then she took down the flour. Elias watched her. You're making bread now? Yes, we have bread. I know. Then why? Clara set the bowl on the table. Because the stove is warm. Because my hands know how. Because tonight I want the cabin to smell like something that rises. He nodded as if that made perfect sense. Because to him, somehow, it did. She mixed the dough while the fire held. Outside, snow covered the trail that had once carried Vale's men to the cabin and carried them away with nothing. Inside, the letter lay open on the shelf. A paper had tried to make Clara Bellamy property. Another paper had helped her fight back. But neither paper was the thing that saved her. What saved her was the seam she kept choosing. The first stitch was walking out of the shop. The second was signing terms before she signed a name. The third was telling the judge the truth without trimming it. The fourth was refusing money that would have left the machine standing. And after that came more stitches than anyone could count. A latch used without shame. A loaf remade after failure. A neighbor's hand on her arm. A man learning when not to speak for her. 3 women saying no from 3 different rooms. A guilty plea on Christmas Eve. A cabin in the snow. A life built one morning at a time. Clara Rusk stood at her own table, in her own warm room, with flour on her hands and no man's debt on her name. The paper had tried to bind her, the seam held.